What up, gang? Today we understand what a pollen checker is, how to avoid pollen checkers at all costs, and how to avoid being a pollen checker yourself, man, because I've been seeing a lot going on lately. Let's get right into it. Get it.
Like, comment, share, subscribe, you heard me?
Yeah, you know it.
Give credit on your niggas, we get pathetic. The smoke, the size of genetics. Oh, how high. Give credit to Zaza. Genetics, genetics, genetics. On your niggas, we get pathetic. I don't know why you try to sell it. Smoking the strain.
Another thing, don't forget to join the Discord.
So off top, man, pollen checkers, pollen checking has become rampant in our community, man. I ain't gonna lie. Everybody wants to be a breeder. Everybody wants to take some pollen and put it on a female plant and create seeds, what they consider making a strain or whatever you want to call it. It's not at all. It's not even close. It's so much work that's required in order to actually, even before you even get to the mechanics of doing the work, understanding the processes is like the most important thing. It takes years of research and knowledge in order to understand these processes. So I really wanted to sit here and help you guys first understand what a pollen checker is. So a pollen checker is going to be anybody who is breeding for money, anybody who is breeding for looks, anybody who is breeding for outside alleles or traits, dominant traits, things that are only expressed physically. Anybody who's just not responsibly breeding, right? They're only breeding for things they may think are cool, whether it's a name or a brand or a look. Ultimately, that's not what breeders do, man. A real breeder only has one goal, and that is to preserve the genetics, enhance them, evolve them. And I'm going to tell you off top, there's certain information that you need to know even to have a good foundation, right? We always talk about language, but rarely do I ever get to touch base on how important the history, knowing your history is, right? I'm going to tell you, if you don't understand Charles Darwin's theory of selection, 1859, you're not a breeder. If you don't understand the 3 laws of inheritance proposed by Edgar Mendel in 1865, you're not a breeder. If you don't understand the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium equation in 1908, you're not a breeder. You dig? Ultimately, this is all the history. You need to understand these histories and how these guys use certain hypotheses to make determinations of mechanics today when it comes to breeding, man. Listen, my guys will tell you, we do classes in Discord, and I teach them the advanced levels of breeding. And just as an example, and we do this frequently, we go and we search for reputable teachers as far as this community and breeding, as far as reputable seed breeders who are also educators, right? We can't find them. You can go on YouTube, you can go online, you can't find them. And I already explained to you why this community has a lack of education, right? Because of there is no, it's federally illegal, so there's no funding within the education system, right? Now, you can search YouTube, Breeding 101, and make it relative to this community, and you won't find anybody. You won't find anything, I mean, besides me, of course. Yeah, thank me later, right? But ultimately, on a more serious note, let me look up breeding animals.
We want to do a short video on breeding dogs, and we're going to talk a little bit about outcrossing, line breeding, and inbreeding, and the differences between the two. I saw some people that were discussing it today, and they really just kind of had it all messed up. They really don't understand the basics of genetics. So we're going to discuss some very basic ideas. All right, and you have a 2N dog. What does the 2N stand for? Well, the N stands for the genetics. That's the set of DNA. And the 2, because they have 2 sets. They have 1 set coming from their father. Half of their DNA comes from their father. That's 1N. And half of their DNA comes from their mother, which is also 1N. So we have a haploid cell, one end, and another haploid cell, one end, to create a diploid cell called the zygote, or that's going to be
Language.
growing and producing your offspring. So all of us know this. I wanted to start off with some basics that everybody knows. And we're going to build up.
That everybody
from
knows.
that. Okay, and people were discussing what is the difference between outcrossing, line breeding, and inbreeding.
12 seconds later.
So, even though this male gave a sperm to this son and gave a sperm to this son, that sperm is a combination this sperm is produced 100% by him, but it's produced 50% by him and 50% by her. She made an egg that made up half of the DNA, 50% of that 100. 50% of that sperm comes from her. 50% of that sperm comes from him. So, on some genes, he gets his father, and on some genes, he gets his mother. But there's many genes in here, many parts, many alleles. You got height, hair color, body weight, eye color, metabolism, all kinds of genes going in here. And this one could have got the same gene that that one got, but it could have gotten a different gene that that one got, because his may have came from him, or his may have came from her. So about half the time they have the same gene. Imagine that you take a pizza, and you're going to cut this pizza into half. But you don't cut it like this. You cut it into 22,000 spots, and you get half of those spots. Okay, 21 to 23,000, something like that. Those are called loci.
So that's just an example of somebody from the dog world, not a scientist, not a botanist, alchemist, biologist, none of that. But understands mechanics of breeding and understands the language as well, to the point where they can teach it. Now you go look up this brother's videos, and he got 2 or 3 videos where he's breaking down. Everything else is dogs. You understand? Completely dogs. So they understand in order to get successful results, you have to know how to do it. You understand? And you can't be a backyard breeder, as we call them. Somebody who's breeding just for looks or color or size, in ultimate reality, avoiding and sacrificing the things that matter the most: health, temperament, all of these things that matter the most are being sacrificed. And the same thing goes in this industry, man, when we think in terms of seeds. Listen, you have to, by all costs, avoid pollen chuckers, man. You got a rampant amount of people in this community just putting 1 + 1 to make 2, right? That is not the way breeding goes. You are not establishing a strain. You are not preserving or enhancing a gene pool in that way. You literally just, I don't know what you want to call it besides pollen chucking or backyard breeding. Avoid these breeders so-called breeders at all costs. They don't know what they're doing, right? They don't understand the mechanics behind stabilizing mold resistance or pest resistance, or the mechanics that they don't even understand the basics of sexual stability. So by all means, you need to avoid buying seeds from guys who are just making seeds by taking a mother and a father, and that's all they know. That's you don't want to buy those seeds, man. There is no history, there is no ancestry, there's no family tree. One thing about my guys, when they are working to create their strains, I teach them to start with genetics that you can trace back directly to the ancestry. If there's a gap within that ancestry from now until all the way back land race, we don't want to work with it. We want to work with specimens that have a clear path from today all the way back to the ancestry, so we can provide this information for the consumer, right? We want to be able to give the consumer a total experience. You want to be able to make an educated purchase when it comes to these seeds, man. You don't want anybody just handing you anything because they had some experiment going on in their basement inside the 2x4 tent. Like, that's not, and then they want to make money off of it. Like, little do they understand the hard work, dedication, desire, and determination that it requires to actually stabilize traits, let alone create uniformity within the entire population. Like, you don't even understand. Like, the Hardy-Weinberg equation of equilibrium states that a gene pool that is in an equilibrium state will always pass down alleles consistently from one generation to the next. If you don't know nothing about that, you have no business calling yourself a breeder. If you don't understand these principles that started in the beginning, stop it. Go learn. Go get your education on. And the reason why I'm telling you this is not because it's any concern to us. It's a concern to you. Because under my watch, under my program, I have real breeders coming up, learning the science. I'm talking about the science. Shout out to Gold Bear Genetics. Shout out to 703. Shout out to Miller Time. Shout out to Sissy. No Limit Edibles. I mean, the list can go on. Dad 2.0. The list can keep going on and on. These are my students. These are my family. And they on their way. So the reason why I'm telling you this is they on their way based on science, biology, botany, like the rules to this thing that y'all have not encountered yet. You understand? So if you want to call yourself a breeder confidently, learn the game. Learn the game from beginning to end. Go study you some Charles Darwin. Go study you some Edgar Mendel. Go study you some Heidi Weinberg. All right? Or you can study you some ZA. You dig? Or you can study you some ZA, man. You hear me? Hey, man, I appreciate y'all rocking with us, man. You hear me? Listen, if you are a consumer and you're concerned about where to buy seeds, of course I wasn't going to leave you without giving you good recommendations, right? I'm going to give you my top 5. And here we go. Top 5 breeders of all time, ZAZA list. Catch me on the next episode. Get it.